Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Zach. This is Hudson Public Library, and I welcome you to join me today for a special story time. This one's going to be a little bit different today. Today we are making a story time all about MLK Day. So that's named after Martin Luther King Jr. And so I'm going to give you some ideas for books that you can read and then just some topics that you can talk about. All right, so just as a warning, there are some things just on the topic of MLK that might be a little bit triggering for young children and even some adults here too. So when we talk about MLK, there's certain things that we can't really avoid talking about. So I want people to be aware of that before I start going into these. All right, so let's get started here. All right, so these are the books that I recommend. These are all available at Hudson Public Library, and we do have plenty more as always. All right, so this first one, I just love the cover of this one. So this one is called Martin's Big Words, and it is The Life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by Doreen Rappaport. And it might be Rappaport is how that's spelled. And so this one is all about the life of MLK, some of the things that he did. It's got just gorgeous illustrations in it. Yeah, just beautiful, the drawings of it, the kind of cut and paste paper mache style of it. It's very cool. And you can't make this out on the video, I'm sure. Maybe if I hold it real close, you can see that there's really cool textures through all of these drawings. So this is a great one for talking about MLK, what he did, who he was. All right, so if you're wanting to do something with the most famous speech that MLK gave, that is the I Have a Dream speech. And this is part of where my advisory warning is coming in again, because this is word for word the words that he used. And some of these words aren't words that we would use as much anymore, but I still think that this is a fantastic book. So this is I Have a Dream. And we've got another book with MLK's face right on the cover. So this is by Martin Luther King Jr. himself, because this is the words of his speech that he gave on Washington. And this one, it is word for word the speech, and it's got some paintings to go along with it throughout the book. And it's got just beautiful illustrations in here. So if you want to talk about what this speech means, why people are talking about this, I think this is a good book to talk with kids about, because it gives kind of pictures that can help them understand this. So if you've got the famous line of I have a dream, like a lot of the lines in this, that one day little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. So that's the words that they have here, and then it shows that in there. I think that this is a wonderful way to get across what the meaning of this speech is. So this is a very good one. It has some very powerful illustrations if you're wanting to try to get across what that is all about. All right, so now we're getting to some books that are less completely about MLK and more what he stood for. So MLK, a lot of what he stood for was equality of people. And I think for a while that manifested itself in a certain type of movement, but now there's new movements that are coming out. So here's one that I want to show you. It's a little bit unusual, but this is Antiracist Baby. So this is a big new movement of instead of saying that you're just not racist, saying that you are actively against being racist. That's what anti-racist means. And this one is by Ibram X. Kendi, and he is an author of a lot of books on this subject, but this one is specifically a board book. So this one is good for the littlest readers, and this has some really powerful concepts in it. And really fun illustrations. good pictures of different babies. I love this spread, this full spread with different families in it. That's just a gorgeous illustration on there too. So Antiracist Baby is another good one. And it's a board book, so those ones hold up really well. All right, so this next book has to do with some of the things that were going on during MLK's time. And unfortunately, some of these things are still going on just a little bit differently and not quite to the same degree as they were. All right, so this one is called Ruth and the Green Book. And this is by Calvin Alexander Ramsey with Gwen Strauss. All right, so if you are white, and especially white in the Midwest, you might not actually know what a green book is or was. And this is especially true before the movie Green Book came out. I feel like that introduced the concept to a lot of people in Iowa. But a green book was a book that basically told Black people where it was safe to travel. This was especially common back in the early civil rights movement in the 60s, back when MLK was around. And this was a physical book that told people where it was safe to go, because a lot of places it wasn't safe to go. It told them where it was safe to travel, where people would actually get them service. So this one especially has some very difficult concepts. But I feel like these are really good books to talk about, because depending on what you look like and depending on what the child looks like, you might not be able to escape those tough conversations. Some people, those types of things are their reality even from the moment they're born. So I want to bring up these books for that reason. So Ruth and the Green Book is all about Ruth and how she is traveling, and she comes across something called the Green Book. And so it lists all the places where it's safe for their family to go. And so they're traveling from Chicago down to rural Alabama. And back then, if you didn't have a green book, it was very dangerous to travel because there were a lot of places that were incredibly dangerous. There were definitely some in the north, but there were more in the south. Unfortunately, there were even a few of these places in Iowa, and they are called sunset towns. Now, this is a very difficult topic, and I know that this will make a lot of people upset if I go further into it. So I will, if you are interested, you can look that up on your own and talk to your kids if they're ready to hear about that. But that is a big reason why people had green books. There were some towns that just weren't okay to go to at all. They were just not very nice places. All right, so that is a great book here. All right, so this next book is all about, if you want to talk to kids about not assuming stereotypes of people. So stereotypes are ways that we think about people as just being in a group, and because they're part of that group, sometimes people say that they have to be like the things that we associate with that group. They have to be like other people in that group, and they can't do the things that we'd associate. So this one is called Amazing Grace. And I always laugh when I see this because this illustration actually reminds me of a friend of mine. So this one is by Mary Hoffman and Caroline Binch. And so this one is all about Grace. And so Grace is a kid, and she is going to be in a play. She gets the chance to play the part of Peter Pan in that play. And it's about how her classmates react to that and what her family's reaction and her reaction is. So some people say that she shouldn't be able to be Peter Pan because she is a girl. And some people say that she shouldn't be able to be Peter Pan because she is Black. So it is all about reacting to that and saying that, you know, she is her own person and she can do what makes her happy, and she ends up being in this play. And also just great illustrations in this, great drawings of outfits. I think they're really fun. Okay, so this next one, I have to tell you, especially could be upsetting to a lot of people when you're reading this. It's about a very difficult topic, but I think it's one that, like I said earlier, some people it's easier to not talk about these things than others. Some people don't really have a choice whether to talk about this or not. So this has been something that's been in the news a lot in the last year. So this one is called Something Happened in Our Town, a child's story about racial injustice. And this is by Marianne Solano, Marietta Collins, and Ann Hazard. All right, so this is about two different families reacting to a police shooting of a Black man. And so you can see right away that this is a very difficult topic, but I think that this is done very well in this book. It is definitely a scary topic. It's overwhelming to a lot of people, and that's why I'm giving you the option of all these books. I want you to know that we have these. Some kids will not be able to handle hearing about these, but I will also say that kids are pretty good at understanding a lot of things, and I think they understand quite a bit of what's happening in the world, and I think it's great to be able to talk to your kids about these things instead of just letting them hear things in the news. So these are difficult topics sometimes, but they're really good to talk about. So there is these two different families talking about what it means. There's a lot of confusion that they feel, as I feel like a lot of us do when we hear about these types of things. It's a very good story. It gives a lot of different perspectives, but I would highly recommend taking a look at this one. And again, difficult topics, but I feel like really good things to talk about. All right, so I've got one more book to recommend to you. I know I have a lot that I'm recommending today. That's the main part of what I'm doing here today. So this one is called I Am Every Good Thing, and it is by Derek Barnes and Gordon C. James. And this one is such a positive book. It is all about saying that you are good. So even if other people are putting you down, then it's saying, I am worth it. I am every good thing. And so this book goes through it's very poetic. It talks about this kid who is talking about how he values himself. So I think especially if you've got a child who is a person of color, this is a great book to really build up that person, because a lot of times we hear a lot of very negative things, a lot of negative stereotypes, and they're all over media. And once you become aware of them, you really start to notice how negative in the media depictions of people of color are. So I think it's especially important for kids to really talk about these good things, to talk about being confident in yourself, being who you are. So I think this is a really good one. The artwork is great in it, and it's very, like I said, poetic. Some of these illustrations are just absolutely gorgeous too. I mean, you can see this spread here with looking in the microscope and an astronaut here. Just absolutely beautiful. All right, so those are my books that I have for you today. And I've got another fun activity that I think could be fun to illustrate kind of what a big idea that Martin Luther King Jr. talked about. So he always talked about how you should judge somebody not on the color of the skin, but by the content of their character. So that was the big phrase he used. So for little ones, you might want to break that down a little bit more. What does that mean? So the content is what is in something, and the character is who you are. So not by what you look like, but by what is inside. And I think a fun way to illustrate that is if you get a couple of eggs. Okay, so hear me out. So eggs can come in a lot of different colors. You can get eggs from every shade from bright white to dark brown, and even some blues and greens in there if you get the right kinds. Um, and so I think if you take a lighter colored egg like a white one and a dark brown kind of egg, then if you show them to the kids, you can say, look at these two different eggs, tell me about them. And so they've got the different colors of shells on the outside. But when you break both of those eggs open, then you can see that on the same, or on the inside, they are both the same. It's still the same egg on the inside. So I think that's a fun way to kind of talk about this. All right. So thank you everyone so much for joining me today. I know that this is kind of tough topics, and so that's why I'm doing this in a bit of a special format. It's a little shorter and a little bit different this time. But that's what I think is great about the library too. We've got all these books that make it so that it's a lot easier to talk about these topics. They're topics that aren't going to go away. These are really good things to talk about. So I will wish everyone a happy MLK Day. And now I will give the day back to you. Bye.